De Sena.
Hello, Chris Smith. Welcome, one and all, and also one.
That's right. Welcome you to the fifth episode of Chris and Jack's Podcast Pilots, the podcast.
Nailed
the podcast where we, every episode, try 2 new pilots to see if this is going to be a podcast that we want to do, want to repeat, want to continue with.
Such a good intro.
Felt tight, right? That felt real tight, that
one. So smooth.
Oh, and so we each have 30 minutes to audition, essentially, our own
Love it.
podcast pilot that the other has no idea yet what it will be. We don't pre-chat these at all. In fact, that's some of the fun, is that we get to, in real time, share our idea for a new podcast right when the other person's hearing it.
Sometimes it hurts. It hurts our pre-chat before we get on here. Because if one of us is like asking the other person about their day or whatever, sometimes it's like, hold on, save it.
Save the good stuff. Save the good stuff, man. I don't know. That parking issue, that's some good stuff.
Yeah. And then you'll decide as the listener, was there any good stuff that we saved? Did we make any of that get into the podcast? Chris, immaculate intro. I'll give my usual addendums as well, which is we don't Google them. Maybe they're already a podcast. That's it. But I feel like by episode 5 now, we're starting to roll, man. We know what these intros are. We don't even need to say that crap anymore.
No.
People, and we're not growing a listener base.
No, if anything, I think it's dwindling.
Yeah, so you know what this is.
Yeah. And then at the end, we're going to have the like most succinct, tight sign off you've ever heard.
Whoa. But in the meantime, we're back here at the beginning, just getting people hyped about our outro.
Yeah.
but let's jump right in, huh?
Let's jump right in. Since you went first last time, I'm going to go first this time.
Wonderful.
With a podcast pilot idea. A lot of the ones that I've done thus far. So now this is where it's starting to get into patterns, right? Like now we're starting to I think our pilots are starting to be informed by like, well, I did that kind of podcast before, and then now I'm starting to get in the zone of like, oh, let me try something even more different to kind of like offset what has been some of my other vibes. I'll say the other ones that I've done, I think have been more like premise-y. There's some backbone. There's like something that's a little bit more structured. I want it as a challenge, mainly to myself, but I want to invite us both to stare into the void a little bit, Jack. I feel like at this point now, we're kind of in the zone where I wonder if we can pull off filling 30 minutes that just kind of happens. And my loose premise for this one,
nothing?
my loose premise for this is close to that. This one is a podcast called Beef and Bouquet. Now, you're familiar with this. You know what a beef and bouquet is.
A beef and bouquet, classic. I know it as like a theater warm up, as like a group exercise, as people are like coming into a space. You know, everybody gets a second to talk, say some stuff out loud, give a beef, give a bouquet.
Yeah, it's generally like you got some good news, you got some bad news, you got a frustration, you got a joy, you got a beef. Kind of like, I got some beef with this thing. And I've got a bouquet, a lovely bouquet of flowers that are like something in life that you may want to celebrate. So I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes, Jack.
Yeah.
And the premise of this podcast called Beef and Bouquet is where we essentially both voice to the other what in our lives recently has served as a beef and what has served as a bouquet. And then from there, we just see where it goes, man.
Wow, staring into the void.
Yeah.
Talking like friends.
This is really loose and just hanging, we're just kind of hanging out.
Can I share a possibly apocryphal origin of the term beef and bouquet?
Please. In the pilot podcast, the pilot episode of Beef and Bouquet, we have to give origin stories.
I feel like I remember first hearing that term from someone sharing it from the inside of the sorority rush process, where when they debate like which of the women they're going to invite into their specific sorority after the like all the meet and greet stuff, and they go like, what about this person? What about this girl? I remember hearing this as a process that they had to go through, where anytime you talked about one of them, you had to give a beef and a bouquet. You can't just come straight out and go like, this girl's perfect, let's put her in. You got to say a little something critical, and you can't just stand there ragging on somebody. You got to say something nice.
I appreciate the dichotomy of life. I like that there's some balancing that does. Got to get some pros and cons. Come on. At least I think what's also interesting about thinking about this, and please, we invite you at home to think about your own beef and bouquet. I don't know if we'll be able to hear you share it, but
we'll feel it.
We'll feel it.
We'll feel it coming straight out of your AirPods right now, back through that cell phone, straight into our hearts. Give us your beefs, give us your bouquets.
And we'll take them on, okay? We will, you can relinquish them, get rid of your beefs, keep your bouquets, but put your beefs onto us, and we'll shoulder those for you.
We'll Michael Clark Duncan all your beefs.
And then all of the flies will come out of
your bouquets.
Our mouths. Which is a reference to the Green Mile for those that were unclear.
Oh, I was doing Michael Clark Duncan from Daredevil. Was that not right? When he's Kingpin? That's what I was talking about. Doesn't Kingpin isn't he a really good listener? Yeah.
The thing in thinking about, because I did pre-think my beef and bouquet, to be fair, so I can also buy you the time to think about your own. But in thinking about it, and I wonder if it's got to be unique to the individual, but I think largely I don't know what this says about me, but it's harder to come up with bouquets than it is to come up with beefs. You know?
Do you hear?
Like, I think I can think about them, but I also wonder if it's like easier for a human to just be like, I can remember a thing that frustrated me more. Like, you can kind of like, you can almost like identify traumas a little bit more clearly than maybe a celebration. Like
they say a thing about like memory forms around trauma in really like intense ways, and so it might stick. I also wonder if, because you're like you're a positive person. I don't think you're someone who's just like going around cataloging all the bad stuff that happens to you and never talking about anything nice. But also, like, I think there's a human instinct to not want to like. I think part of the reason this exercise can sometimes be good in like a theater setting or in a new space or whatever is like saying something positive is sort of a tough act sometimes, in terms of like, it feels like you're bragging, right? You're saying like, here's a nice thing that happened to me. There's an instinct to not want to like overshare that.
Right.
And I think it is to give permission for this, but I agree. I have a harder time feeling comfortable saying that. And also I know myself when I usually do this, I say them very quick, I get them out, and mine are usually like, just like minor gripes. I never want to like launch into like a whole thing. I have a hard time sharing some emotional stuff in both directions.
We got to be vulnerable in this, Jack. We got to get vulnerable in this shit.
Let's get there. Yeah, I'm ready.
Because sometimes, you do a bouquet, it comes off as bragging. You're like, hey, I'm the greatest person that has ever lived.
Yeah.
And then some people are like, well, it's a little braggadocious. And you're like, I'm better than you, And then they're like, that's rough to hear. And I'm like, well, I'm doing my bouquet. Like, what's the deal here?
This is what the floor is for. Bouquet, I counted to the highest number I've ever counted to this week while counting my money. I'm richer than you.
So, yeah, right. That's where it gets a little.
Those are the ones where they feel braggy. Those are the ones that get low.
They feel braggy, but you're like, that's my truth. So
yeah,
we're joking, guys. We're joking. Did you notice how the jokes came right on the heels of us getting a little vulnerable? You see that we compensated there?
And I do want to clarify, like, I've never been very good with my money, so.
And I definitely don't rank myself high in the sense of all individuals. But here we are. We have to honor the truth that is the beef and bouquet. We have to honor this podcast premise and take it seriously.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you if you want to go first. You want me to go first, Jack?
I'll go. Whatever order you'd like. And do I do both? Do I do one? Do we flop back and forth the beefs? Do we? I know you wanted to stare into the void, but I do feel like this should be highly structured. This is begging for like really clear
I
guardrails.
like a beef, a bouquet. So then we at least end on the upswing. You know, I like some of that. So yeah, I got fully structured and now there are rules.
Okay.
Do you want to go first with your beef?
I can beef first. I got a double stack of beef that are.
So we're going double here.
I got a double, light ketchup, grilled onions only, animal style fries, large chocolate shake.
Okay, hit me with it.
Okay, they're both around a theme, and both times it was awesome thing that was fantastic, followed by very frustrating element, and they're both related to taking Frances, my 15-month-year-old daughter.
15-month-year-old. I'm really trying to unpack that and like hear it, and it really hurts my brain to think about that.
15-month-year-old daughter. I took her to two different pools this week, and both times
swimming pools.
Swimming pools. Both times went fantastic, and then got a little frustrating at the end. So I'm going to talk about all of that.
Let's talk about this. Let's unpack this, dude.
So on Wednesday, we're going to timestamp all of this really clearly.
Yes.
On Wednesday, I took her to a swim lesson. It was her first swim lesson at a local aquatics center, and we went a-swimming. It was her first time. She had been in a pool before, but this was her first swim class.
Are you in the pool with her? You said we went swimming. Yeah. Are you? So you're floating nearby, but there's like a teacher there, or are you teaching her?
There's a teacher there, and they're taking you through like different exercises, basically, to like get the kid accustomed to the pool. And there's a big range of like it's a under 18-month-year-olds class, so there's a big range of ages. It got normal in your ear. I slipped that one right by. You didn't even get annoyed by that.
I just full on blocked it. I'm just like full on like, yeah, it hurt my brain so much that the neurons are like, no. No, move on.
So nice big range of ages. I'm sure different levels of how often you've been in the pool. There was definitely at least a kid who was not about it the whole time. It's like a 20-30 minute class, and he was just so upset the entire time. But she'd been in pools before. Really liked it. I'm in there with her. We're doing like different, like, okay, this time it's mostly just like I'm walking her up and down the length of this shallow end of the pool in different sort of like, this time try to get her to lie on her back and float. This time try to get her to lie on her front and like paddle a little, stuff like that. Then there was a whole section where she grabs the side rail, put a little rubber ducky on one side. She's got to like crawl over to it and grab the ducky, crawl over to the other side just to get her used to like crawling on the side of a thing. Then there was some like stand up outside of the pool and jump in if you want to.
That's a big step, and she's all about it.
She took to that like a 15-month-year-old to water.
God, that year-old month. God.
So it was a fantastic time at the pool.
Yeah.
We took a little, we got a little picture for the swipe-in card. The teacher seemed really nice. They do like little in songs and out songs at the beginning and end. They're singing
in this?
It's a lovely, they're singing, like we all sing a little song together. You do like wheels on the bus, and you like move the kid like the wheel through the water, then like the wipers. And it's a good time.
And the fish goes to the bottom of the pool. Is it going crazy like that? Okay, because I was going to say that probably shouldn't do that part.
I think they skipped it. I don't know. Maybe week 3. It was such a good time. Here comes the beef.
Okay.
That she really didn't want to leave and had the maybe biggest solo, just me and her outside of the house meltdown to date, where it was fully like a no exaggeration hour of just parking lot full scream. Refusing to get into the chair. And she's just too big now that if she's too strong, that if she's like trying to resist, it's not going to happen. Like I can't like, there was an age in which it's like, I can just put you there. And now it's like, I could not do that without risking you like writhing too hard and hurting yourself. So,
and she's 110th percentile height wise. I know this.
110th percentile in height. Yeah, that's true.
I have 2 questions already. One with regard to the pool, and then one with regard to the beef when you're actually at the car trying to put her in the seat. The first one, I'll do the pool because we're going back in time for a second. The pool, people are there. We're singing songs. We're having games. Parents are there. Is there any parent that's in there that's just kind of like really side-eyeing the lesson? And then you're like, I don't think this parent knows how to swim. And they're trying to double dip on the lessons.
Okay. And then doggies and kitties, and then doggies and kitties. This is the term for you do like a left-hand stroke, doggies, right-hand stroke, kitties, doggies and kitties, and doggies and kitties.
Oh, that's good.
And I think, you could see someone sort of like mouthing it along for themselves and like a very reassuring, okay, doggies and kitties, and then, okay, doggies, and then got it, and then follow up with kitties. I got it.
Right.
Keep saying, yep.
And then there's the rubber ducky to the right. I grabbed
right.
And
I grabbed the
shrimp. Yeah.
And then, and the big tell was when they left their child in the pool and jumped on them from the outside. That was the big, like, it seems like this is more for you.
It's not for everybody, but some really take to it.
Yeah.
The jump from the ledge. My second question was, Jack, as a new father, are you experimenting in real time, like what your tactics are of like, you said this is the first time you've ever had her have this huge blow up situation. Like, what are the soothing process?
It was the most extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, There's all the normal tactics of like, just trying to comfort her, trying to like bop her up and down in a comforting manner. Trying to, at this point, there are some times where I could like kind of rationalize, kind of negotiate, kind of talk her through it. Is possible sometimes. This one, I probably, if it wasn't like so public, I probably would have done more of a like, let's just like take a walk around the parking lot for a little while. Let's like stroll and let's like kind of get on the move. But it was just like such a scene that I was like, oh no, I don't want to have all the screaming.
Right.
So then I was like, let's sit in the car till she calms down. This one tried a tactic that was I was texting Lisa about how bad it was going, and she at one point like sent a video, which was like I thought that was like a fun pitch. She sent a video of like her trying to calm Frances down.
Oh, that's fun.
And was like very sweetly like, okay, can we calm down and can you get in the car seat? And when I played it for Frances, like seeing her mother did calm her down for a second. And then the second Lisa said car seat, she like flipped. It was really bad. I'll sadly admit that the eventual like winning tactic after an hour, and I waited this long to try it, but the eventual thing was just I showed her cute videos of elephants on YouTube. I just caved and I was like, we try not to show her like too much.
I love that
you're just not supposed to.
I love that is the like, I mean, we really shouldn't. And then it's like nature documentaries versus like giving someone like extra ice cream or.
If I had candy, I would have given her candy.
Yeah, okay. My thought was maybe like, we're just going to, okay, fine. Let's just go back to the pool, jump in the ledge. We'll like get you in the pool for another 4 hours.
I mean, that wasn't an option. I had been expelled from the pool forever because I kissed Wendy Pfeffercorn.
Right.
So,
oh gosh, that still haunts you.
No, it was like, once we're in there, it just felt like she was gonna calm down at some point, and it just was not happening. Gave her some food, and she would like chill out for a second while she was eating, and then anytime I like tried to either move her into the seat or even mention moving her into the seat, she's got the word no now.
Yeah.
And uses it very casually. So I'm just like, okay, do you want to go home? Yeah. Do you want to see mama? Yeah. You want to get some milk? Yeah. Do you want to sit in the car seat? Nope.
Oh.
And it was all, I said yeah each time, but it was just like little head nods and then a very clear nope.
Got to change the word car seat. You got to change the word car seat to like, pool. And then you put her in that.
Put her in the pool?
No, you put her in the seat. So the seat's called pool, and then the pool's called car seat. And then
she's just going to be upset that she can't be in the car seat, which is the pool.
Right. But at least she'll be now saying, you want to go to the car seat? And she'll be like, yeah.
Yeah, but I think she's using visual cues as much.
Got it.
And she notices when I'm putting her in the car seat.
Can you make a car seat look like a pool?
I could throw a lot of water on my daughter. That's
a something. That's a something. That's a something. Well, Jack, I hear your beef.
Thank you.
I honor it.
Thank
Do you feel better having gotten that out of your system a little bit, or do you feel like it revisited old traumas and you're just kind of like, I feel like I'm anxious again?
That's interesting. How did I feel about it? I mean, there's a little anxiety of just like, I'm talking about my daughter in public. That's like, oh, weird. What's supposed to be, so that's my new beef.
Right. But to be fair, she was also in our latest sketch.
Good.
So there's also people are better.
Yeah. No, I think that was good. I think that was helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And now as we've structured very rigidly, will be giving my beef. Okay. I can't even handle this. And we're already like over halfway done, Jack. So we've got like we can
vamped on that thing about my daughter crying.
Yeah,
which is pretty regular.
And that's good material, dude. That's what's proving to us that we can just stare in the void and talk, man.
Yeah. That's A+ podcasting.
My beef is, I'll say, my beef is a bigger beef for my brother than it is for me, but it does affect me and is a beef for me. Okay? But it's interesting beef, I think, because I was like, what are some of the beefs? There's some things here and there, but this is one I'm like, well, this is kind of a crazy thing that happened. Nick and my brother and I, live together in an apartment. We have tandem parking. Nick was visiting our mom up in Northern California and then returned like last week. I had the place to myself for a while. It was wonderful. But Nick is back now.
Brother.
Oh, brother, exactly. Literally. And then he parked in our garage. The next morning, he was parked behind me because he was obviously the last one to have entered the garage at the time.
Uh-huh.
I go to move his car, get in the car, and then he's got a Prius. And then I get in the car, and then the engine is sounding so loud, like egregiously motorcycle, like with no muffler, loud, like something.
Not a thing that Priuses do.
No, something wrong here. So then I like move his car, and I'm like, there's clearly some major issues here. And then I go up and tell him, I'm like, you should probably go check this out. He goes in there, he hears the same thing, calls the Toyota dealer in the neighborhood. And then they ask one question immediately. They're like, hey, is there a wire hanging out from the bottom of your car in the front, like in the engine area? He leans down, looks down, and yes, immediately that was the answer. Someone had stolen what is called a catalytic converter. Yeah. And so that is this piece that's like underneath the car that essentially like is about exhaust control and like reduces toxic gases and stuff. But it's a piece in the car that also has like these precious metals in it that is going rampant. Maybe even people have had it. What's it called?
Isn't it cadmium? There's a bunch of cadmium in it, and the price of cadmium got crazy.
And so people are stealing these things for like $3,000 a pop.
Yeah,
but that affects me because now we got one car between us. We got to plan that out. He had to take it in the shop and stuff like that.
Behind you, that's annoying. You were trying to get out when that happened, so that killed a day.
But what's interesting here is now it's become a beef because it's been frustrating, but it's also opened up a little bit of a can of worms for me to where now I'm like, we're in an apartment complex and there are a lot of people that share the same garage. There's still like a garage door and it's usually locked. It's supposed to be locked up. Next to his car was a little like wrench bar, like an angled, like whatever the tool was they used to just like remove the bolts. And they just like left their murder weapon. Basically, it looks just like it was like out of Clue. It was like in the garage with the lug nut tool. And so we have the tool that the person used to remove the thing. And then now I'd also months ago, and this is crazy because Nick, it happened the night he got back. So I'd been here for weeks before that. He'd just been gone for like a couple weeks. So the night he got back,
the Prius.
That's the thing, is that then I'd had someone steal from my car a couple months previously on like a random night. I'd been out of town, came back, then someone broke into my car, stole some stuff. So I'm starting to pivot my thinking here, and I'm like looking at all my neighbors suspiciously.
You think it's an inside job.
The math is adding up to me, Jack. I'm thinking like people, who's going down there every night, checking on their car, doing a little casing of the joint. Any new cars coming in? Anybody like, let me get down there at 3 a.m. I can have, I know the traffic patterns here. I got an alibi. I can strike, there's just, and so now it's really bred in me a distrust for humans.
Those closest to you, your very neighbors.
My very neighbors.
That's a deeper philosophical beef. They're really messing with your sense of home and safety and sanctuary. That's a bummer.
It's also a really interesting, almost like an acting exercise in a way. When I talk to my neighbors now, and I don't believe certain neighbors, some neighbors I'm like, I don't know. But any conversation now, there is this little nugget in the back of my head. I'm like, are you the one that stole a catalytic converter from us? Like we go, and it's like, and then when you look at someone with that, and it's like having a normal conversation, it makes them all really interesting. Like it really, a double life. It's really exciting.
I think there's a move here, and maybe it's overzealous or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think you're a neighbor. You're allowed to ask, can I borrow some sugar? Can I borrow some milk? Can I borrow
a catalytic converter?
Or can I borrow a lug nut wrench?
Oh, very interesting. Because I have it.
Because you've got it. So you look for the person who thinks they can lend it to you, and then is like, you're like, oh yeah, no problem, and then comes back, it's like, oh, actually, I never mind. Because then they, yeah, you got it.
I need to like. I'm thinking Ace Ventura when he has the photo of the football team and there's like crosses out on everybody's faces when he's trying to find the like ring.
Yep.
I need a school photo of everyone in my apartment complex.
I mean, so stage that fun block party already.
Exactly.
That's just a great excuse.
Then I'll already be guilting whoever did it because I'll be the guy that's like bringing everybody together and we're getting closer as a result.
Stolen
freaking catalytic converter. And then when I'll just start asking them randomly, like, oh yeah, can you? I'm gonna make some prints of that photo actually that I got for everybody. Wanted to know when would be good to get it to you. Also, was wondering if you had a lug nut wrench.
I need it to help make the prints.
The printer does. There's a lug nut loose in my printer.
Got a loose lug nut.
That's the way. Well, then my beef just turned into Bouquet because that's great, Jack. That's gonna help me a lot.
Your beef just turned into a cool mystery.
Yeah. Jack, I want to ask
sucks.
you.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
I was going to pivot to Bouquet, but unless you had another thought on my beef.
Oh no, just this is a thing that's happening. There's like a certain age of Prius, and this happened to another mutual friend of ours, Lee. His got stolen a couple months ago. Yeah, apparently they're really accessible. Like the way they were built in a certain year of Prius, they're really accessible, and some metal just went way up in price. And now they're really valuable.
Well, one of the Nick's getting a repair on his, and then they have an option for that model that you can pay it like, $800 or something to like have them weld a protective case over it or whatever.
A little cage, yeah.
Yeah. Part of me wants though to be like, I think there's a way to do it for like $3, which is to buy spray paint and then get down there and then just play a mind game and then be like, don't even fucking think about it. Like you spray paint that and then like
spray paint a GoPro on there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's just a stencil of a GoPro and they're like, oh, they got me.
By the way, when you were saying you found the wrench, I thought we were going to a fingerprinting place and I was very excited about that.
I honestly, fingerprinting would be great, but I've already touched it and Nick has already touched it. So
but you can control for that because you know what your finger. I mean, it's fine.
Oh, we didn't smudge the other fingerprints on there by grabbing it.
I mean, dude, they can pull a partial.
Oh, dude.
They can pull a partial print.
And then here's the thing is that then the way I get everybody else's fingerprint in the building is I hand out these prints of these pictures that I took.
Yeah.
And I always have two of them
on that like sticky carbon paper.
Yes. And I always have two of them. And then I'm always like, here's your copy. And then they grab it with their fingers and I'm like, oh no, sorry, it was this one. And then I hand them the other one and then I take back the one that's got their print on it.
Boom.
Got the print.
Boom.
Got the wrench. I'm going to do this and I'm going to report back in a month. Okay.
You're ready.
Yeah.
You're ready. I love that.
What's your bouquet, Jack? We got like 5 minutes left here.
Oh, I'll do a quick one then.
Yeah.
Lisa and I got a babysitter and had our second going out to dinner, just the two of us date night since having the baby. Obviously, we would have had a lot more of these a lot sooner, if not for the world. But it was like the second time so far. The other one was Father's Day that we were able to like go out for dinner. We went out for lunch on Mother's Day, so third total.
Okay. For the fact checkers out there. Yeah.
I know people are hunting that info down. It was great. Had a great time. Tried a great new restaurant. Outdoor, lovely, there was brick everywhere. You know I love brick. You know
Jack
this
the
about
Brick
me.
Guy. Jack
I
does
really
a character.
like brick.
Jack does. Well, no, we.
Oh. That was not, aesthetically, I like the look of bricks. But also, for years, I've been doing a really shitty impression of LA sports radio personality Vic the Brick Jacobs, who sounds a little something like this. This was a catchphrase of his from like the early 90s. I haven't done this for a very long time. Let me
put you on the spot.
Be like the bamboo. Flow, you bend, but do not break. Yeah, but then his big catchphrase was, you see the brick, eat it. That probably blew out really hard. Oh, we're going to have fun mixing my Vic the Brick impression. You see the brick, eat it. And then he like throws the brick at the camera. And this was like his way of like calling out non-performing word, great. All right, you're up, Chris. What a great...
The inflection of eat it. Oh, it goes different directions. I anticipate. That caught me off guard. I don't think I heard that part. I always thought it was the bend you do not break. I didn't know that.
I did that one just as the warm up. But yeah, that's his other big he would do it. There was I listened to full interviews that was just this man sitting in the Lakers locker room talking to then Laker Lamar Odom. And it was just this is the real, this isn't an interview. You just get recorded and then played on the radio, his little pep talk for Lamar that was always, Lamar, you gotta be like the bamboo. The bamboo lets the water flow around it. You gotta bend, but do not break, Lamar. Anyways, Vic the Brick Jacobs. Hope he's well. And then you did pre-show stuff.
I hosted a little tailgate thing where I did trivia for football tailgates. Yes.
And I subbed for you one time. You couldn't be there. This was a gig you had through UCLA through marching band and juggling stuff. And I subbed for you one time as just a guy who could also say trivia. And he always walked by those. And I never met him. But he was a man who at the time was probably in his early 60s who would wear a poncho and a very large raccoon, a coonskin cap, a very large animal fur cap of some kind, and would carry a rain stick, and then the poncho would be the colors of whatever team he was there to support, the Dodgers or the UCLA Bruins or Vic the Brick Jacobs, LA personality. So I love bricks. So I ate outside at this lovely restaurant. Vic the Brick Jacobs was there. That was my bouquet.
What a bouquet.
And Chris, we talked about how it's hard sometimes to talk about bouquets. And I legitimately as I was trying to quickly think through my week and what I wanted to talk about, and I'm I don't know, this was a nice dinner I had. I didn't want to go into great detail or anything. So thank you for letting me just do a Vic the Brick impression instead of being vulnerable about a nice time with my life.
That's okay. See, that's what balances out.
Thank you.
That was one of the biggest
cathartic.
laughs I've had in a long time because I'd completely forgotten about Vic the Brick. And not only is that one of my favorite characters, impressions that you do, but that I got a whole new catchphrase that I didn't even know about. Beef and Bouquet is crushing right now.
That was the one that always channeled it for me. In my head, I would say, eat it.
It's also
fantastic.
It's such a cheap, lowest denominator catchphrase or insult, because it's just you're gonna throw the brick.
I'm gonna throw the brick at you. You gotta eat the brick.
No, but it's eat the brick is not what I expect.
Wait, hold on. I remembered one more part of it.
Great.
This was now what is now playing in my head was clearly a cobbled together of a couple of different catchphrases that would play as an intro before segments he was on this radio show.
Yeah.
So they had, see the brick, eat it, and then would immediately be followed by this catchphrase, hey, get out of LA. Yeah.
So it gets better the deeper we go. Oh, is this a Vic the Brick impression podcast now?
I
almost like this better.
Next week might be a Vic the Brick deep dive.
This is a Vic the Brick fanfic, is what it is. Oh my gosh. Well, that's our time. I'll give you my.
Will you bring us home with a bouquet?
My bouquet is I got my IRS refund back. How about that? So that's good.
Okay, so bouquet, and now your favorite impression. Was it all you expected it to be? Was it a nice? Was it like either was it just nada you owed something? You got.
It wasn't that I owed. It was like refund. it was a long-standing beef because it took forever to get it back because my CPA had put the wrong number in my routing number. I didn't know, and then it got delayed and it got delayed, and I was counting on it, and it got delayed, and then a hard check showed up in the mail just this last week, just in time. It was a real nice thing, and I'm getting ready to start training for a triathlon, Jack. And so I'm buying a new bike. And so that's why I was like, oh, this will be nice.
Very nice.
But that's beef and bouquet, everybody.
That's beef and bouquet and brick. That's okay. Love it. Good pod. Well, we'll dissect that pod later in our real tight outro that we're going to be getting into in a little bit. We promise. We hyped that up.
Yeah. That brought me a lot of joy. I had completely. Oh man, I feel like I'm a broken record, but the Vic the Brick journey and character is something that makes me laugh just a whole lot.
I'm so glad.
And also, no disrespect to Vic the Brick. He's we're just riffing on his character and the thing he does.
Genuinely, like all of those, like it was a very weird but cool thing that sometimes instead of like really obnoxious classic sports talk radio interviews with players where it's just like, just minutia or like, what are we thinking about on that play or whatever, that just sometimes he would sit with Lamar Odom and just sort of like have a spiritual pep talk about like life and basketball. That. It was like legitimately a very positive thing that I thought was like very cool, and I hope he's doing well and still working. I don't listen to sports talk much anymore.
He brought me a whole lot of joy just now, so I think he channeled himself through you, Jack.
Eat it. Hey, get out of LA. Great. Love it. All right, Chris.
All right, Jack.
I've got one too.
All right.
Can I first tell you what this? I'm going to give you a little bit of origin story for this podcast.
Great.
As I get the timer ready. This was an idea I had a while ago that I think is like maybe a cool idea for a podcast. I was like, that might be research intensive. I had another idea that was also research intensive, but I was like, so I did the other one first. I was researching for the other one first, and then kind of a little far into the researching for that one, I was like, oh, I think this is not a fun idea, and I bailed on it.
Okay.
So then I was like, I'll pivot back to that other one. That one's fun. Also kind of research intensive, so I started doing that research, and then in the middle of that one, I was like, this I'm also unsure about, but pretty committed at this point. So here we go.
You can't flip-flop twice. You can't go back again.
Then I'm just in. The other one, I'll briefly tell you, was a podcast. I mean, maybe we'll do it later.
Maybe we'll use it. Are you going to... Well,
I think I sort of did enough research to decide that I wasn't going to do it, which is a podcast called Would You Dan Rather? And it's a podcast in which I describe to you Dan Rather's life, and you tell me if you would Dan Rather. Would you switch places and become Dan Rather? And that's a full idea. That's just that sentence. And then I just read about Dan Rather for a while, and I was like, I don't know. What's this? What's the joke? What's a half hour of this? What am I doing? So I bailed on that.
Yeah.
And instead bring you the research-intensive podcast that I spent too much time researching to come up with a good name for. The original name was Breaking Birthdays, or Birth Date Line? I didn't have it. I didn't land on a good title. We'll go with Breaking Birthdays. Here's the premise of Breaking Birthdays.
Great.
You're the first guest. You'd then become a host because you'd be such a good guest.
Thank you.
We'd have other guests.
I could really stink this up, though. I'd appreciate, though, that you would give me the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, but to be frank, if you stink it up, it's just not going to series, you know?
Fair.
This is a pilot.
Fair. Yeah, sure.
It needs your strong performance to pull through. I've looked up your birthday. I've looked up stuff that was happening on and around your birthday. I then also, the goal was, the original premise in my head was specifically, here's like what was going on in the country, here's like some stuff. And then what I wanted was like, here's some fun, interesting local news stories from like where you were born, when you were born. That's the goal of this podcast. I want to set the bar there so that people evaluate this later and go like, that could have been, I mean, there's a fun idea there. In my head, I was going to be like thumbing through microfiches in like some dusty library, uncovering like a local news story. And I think that might still be possible. But one bump in the road that I immediatly found, and is it cool, Chris, if we talk about your birth story a little bit, including like date, how old you are? Are you comfortable sharing that information because then people know your astrological sign, all of that stuff? I
am comfortable with that. I mean, I obviously there's a lot of those like, oh, big celebrity birthday, dropping soon. So I'm sure you can definitely like look me up through that because of all those like really big
for sure.
Yeah. But no, I can reveal, and so that way I feel like I'm the one that did it.
Yeah.
My birthday is April 3rd, and I'm 36 years old.
April 3rd, 1985. The year was 1985. Topping the charts in the U.S. was Phil Collins with the hit One More Night. And then maybe you do a little drop.
Yeah. Oh, this is good. I also love these things when it pops up. We're like, what was the number one thing on my birthday? What was the movie that was taking all the money on my birthday? Yeah.
Number one on the UK charts, it's Phil Collins with Easy Lover. She's an easy lover. She get a heart for you, believe it.
See, we don't even need to drop the track. You've already got it covered.
I dropped it. Phil Collins and Philip Bailey sing Easy Lover. I didn't know there was somebody else on that, but there you go.
Okay.
Top movie at the box office. Do you already know this? When you were born?
No, I don't. I don't.
Do you want to play 20 questions and just eat the whole podcast time so that I don't have to go where this is going eventually, which is...
Well, now I'm curious where it's going.
Well, the local news story that I found, I then deep dove and read so many articles about, and then by the end I was like, what is this that I'm going to try to retell this weird medical mystery story? Anyways, we'll get there.
Right? Okay.
Friday the 13th, which part? Can you guess which part?
Oh.
Friday the 13th, part
2?
5.
5.
You're young, dude. You're spring chicken compared to the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah, I mean, because all of the Friday the 13th I've seen have been in just like, not in theater. Like mostly, a couple of them, but largely they're all like before my time, quote unquote.
Yeah. Well, that one. This, by the way, there's a website that I found just a bunch of this stuff on. It was great. But they list like popular TV shows at the time.
Okay.
The A-Team. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Thundercats, Last of the Summer Wine, which is what? I've never, ever, in a million evers heard of that. Maybe it's a British thing? No idea.
What's also interesting about these types of things is that it feels like you're always like, wow, man, that was what was hot right when I was born. And then you're like, yeah, but I couldn't really understand the world or media or have any opinions or taste of anything
much.
For probably like 20 years.
I don't know that One More Night is sort of the theme song of my life in any way.
But I guess interesting that was birthed at the same time as me.
Yeah.
Small side anecdote. I at one point, so I was born in Denmark.
Yeah.
And at one point
what town, by the way? I was trying to remember this.
Hillerød.
I nailed it. Hillerød.
Oh, do you have a local, so you have a local medical mystery in Hillerød?
No, Chris, I don't. And that's why I was saying this was really hard to research because I was like, oh yeah, it's fun. And I could like look up the local newspapers. Then I was like, wait, Chris was born in Hillerød, Denmark. How do I?
It's all in Danish.
Talk about it. Yeah. I didn't find
translate
anything in the microfiches.
But what was interesting was that, so I would visit Denmark growing up and then would go, every other summer as a kid. And then I always, though, wanted to go back as an adult and have like a good chunk of time there. It was just mine. It wasn't always with family. It was like, let me have some time. So I went there for 3 months. This was back in like 2013, 2014. And then I, at some point, got inspired to go back. I was staying in Copenhagen. I decided to go back to Hillerød, which is, hour or so outside of Copenhagen. And I wanted to go back there, and I had it in my head. I was like, I want to go see the room I was born in. Can you do that? Is that a thing people do? Is that like a cool thing? Like where you appeared in the world like the first time? And so I was like, oh, this might be a thing that people do. And so I tracked down the hospital. I went to the front, and I like went in at the time with like just odd confidence that like, of course everyone would welcome me with open arms because I was born here. And so I went to the front desk and I was like, hey, I'm Chris. Here's my birth date and details and stuff. I'm here. I was born here. I was wondering if there could be a way maybe I could see the room. And then,
I'm here to see the room as per custom that everyone is aware of.
And then everyone was like, what are you doing? What? Who are you? What are you doing? No. What do you think we're going to do? This is a hospital. You think we're just going to go tour a hospital room? And then at one point I was like, immediately I was like, right. No, this is right. Right. This is insane.
Not a thing.
I'm an insane person. And then a nurse overheard me, and then she was like humored enough by it or something like that. She could tell it was like, it was bad accented Danish because I was largely American. And so then it was like, let's see. Maybe there'll be a fun little thing. And then they like found my old record.
That's incredible
and crazy. And then they took me up to the hospital area, and then it was this thing of like, well, we've actually kind of like remodeled it a bunch since you were born. And honestly, all of the maternity ward area is like in a whole different wing of the hospital. So actually, if you were born in a room, it would be like one of these 4 that's now like kind of like
closet
just general
in the
care
X-ray area.
Yeah. And then it was this weird thing. Then she's like, well, I guess it was one of these 4. And then I was like, oh. And so I just like then walked into 4 different rooms, 2 of which had people in them. And then I just kind of had to go into each of them as like an acting exercise.
The moment.
And just treat each one as if like, wow, this might have been the one. This might have been the one. And I'll say there was something weirdly moving. It was something like, it was weird. But then when I finally left, I was like, well, something in there worked out. And then it was just a weird feeling of like a full closed loop for a weird moment in life where I was like, this is where I started. I went on a huge like adventure and I came back. There was like a closed loop moment. And then it kind of did feel like a little bit of a reset. So I tell people
there were 4 possible
possible
loop.
Resets.
One of them.
Yeah. So I was like existing as an electron for a second in like various states of existence. But at one point, so I recommend everybody try and find the hospital room you were born in. It's a very circuitous kind of like nice round experience. And then it's a rebirth. So now I'm technically only 6.
Nice.
7.
I was born in Brigham Women's Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. I'll check it out.
Go check it out, man. You're ready. It's worth it.
What was going on? What do you think was going on in Denmark at the time? Because I got one. I can tell you a couple pretty cool things, like that the monarch was Margaret II and that the prime minister was Paul Schlüter.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Paul Schlüter.
Paul Schlüter.
Pretty
That's
cool.
great. Well, obviously,
pretty good research.
Very cool research. Now I really want to know this friggin' mystery, this medical something or other that you found.
No, Chris,
What's going on?
I gotta stall because we're only 10 minutes in this podcast and I cannot talk about that for 20 minutes.
Yeah, fair.
When did you move to Tahoe? Because the medical mystery is set in Tahoe, and I knew I could cheat and give at least a little bit of research about Tahoe because I thought you were there pretty soon after. But
I was in Tahoe at probably like age 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
some
of this story takes place in 1986.
Okay.
So we're okay. But hey, man, before we get there,
we got some time.
Don't you want to hear about the only thing listed under sports in 1985 in Denmark Wikipedia page? Well, it's when Gentofte BK won the Europe Cup. Of what? Badminton. That's my big Denmark fact, is that Gentofte BK beat BMK Aura Malmo from Sweden 7-0 in the Badminton Europe Cup. What kind of context does that add? You just told that nice story about seeing the room and breathing it in.
Yeah.
Does it mean something else to you knowing that right around that same time, Easy Lover was tearing up the UK charts and Gentofte BK was going they won their, They won their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th title in 8 years.
Look at that. I'll say Denmark, I know, is a badminton country.
I mean, they were dominating the early years. They haven't won a Europe Cup since, 2005 when Kastrup Malgaby BK beat Bise Buell from Germany.
Well, we don't need to bring that up, Jack. All that stuff that I know. I think it really gives context, honestly. It does help enrich in my life because it's helping me it's helping me understand the state of the world that I was like kind of like stepping into. You know, it's important to know that there was something beyond those 4 walls, or sorry, those 16 walls.
Those 4 of 16 possible walls.
Yes.
Some other things happening in America at the time.
Great, which is some foreshadowing for me, you know, because we didn't know I wasn't going to be there yet.
We're getting there.
Yeah,
America's getting ready for you.
Yeah.
We Are the World. Well, this is global, but We Are the World came out. That song.
Yeah.
Yeah. March 7th. We're getting ready for you. We're building up to Chris.
Do you want to give us a little?
We are the world. We are the children. We're the ones that make a better place, so let's start living.
Which of the celebrities are you? Should people be visualizing when you're singing there? Like when the camera pans across like the 50 celebs that are singing. Who were you in that one?
I was the cameraman as the camera pans, singing along and getting like a come on, be professional from the second AD. It was my voice shouldn't have been on the record, you know. March 15th. Oh, we're so close to your birthday. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
The first internet domain name is registered. That's way earlier than I would have thought.
And was it chrisandjack.com? Because that would have been some crazy foreshadowing. And also a URL we don't know.
Yeah. Well, how are we going to get it? It was the first thing ever registered.
The first thing ever registered. It's hard. Yeah.
It was symbolics.com.
Symbolics?
Symbolics.com. Which, if you go to it now, as I'm doing now for the first time, didn't choose to research this, does say, welcome to symbolics.com, the world's first and oldest registered.com on the internet. What are you for, though?
Yeah. It's just kind
I don't know.
like,
I can download an ebook.
And
what is Symbolics? Am I going to, or is this going to be some weird cult? Or is this like,
is there like just a PayPal button? And then that's just like how they do it. It's like a novelty, like world's biggest ball of yarn. And then this is like the digital version.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I don't want to read all of this right now, but
I thought it would have been some sort of like college.
Yeah, like
URL
MIT,
or something.
Or wherever it got, I know UK likes to say they invented the internet. Maybe they did.
Al Gore is involved somehow, right? Doesn't he say that he did it?
Yeah, because he pushed through like a pretty important bill that helped fund a lot of the research that then led to it. So it's like actually a pretty good thing about how like government can work and help forward our society. But it all got memed to hell about him just going like, I invented the internet. Well, okay.
Well, Symbolics is clearly capitalizing.
You ready for this? March of 1985, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, is murdering in L.A. That's no fun.
Ooh. I watched that doc on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix. It's great, by the way. It's
that's
really
what
well made.
Like the city you would come to call home was experiencing at that very moment. The terror of a serial killer.
And they do a real good job in that series, by the way.
What does that make you think about? Your context.
Well, life and death, really, right? There's something round about that. There's something...
You begin, yeah.
And probably some crazy big mystery in Tahoe. Some real big mystery.
Chris, we'll get there. It's not good. Just don't... It's not good.
Wow. Who knows what could happen?
I just got so excited. There were so, like, I Googled 1985, I Googled the April 3rd, 1985 Tahoe.
Yeah.
And then the first headline I see is 160 victims at Lake Tahoe, blah, 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 a medical mystery story And it was an article from the LA Times about 1985 Tahoe, and I found multiple articles about this. And I was like, oh, we're in. This is a podcast. I quickly read this quote. My days are pretty boring. I read or get a video cassette. I feel like a Raggedy Ann with no stuffing. Was like somebody within this medical mystery, and I was like, this is a cool quote.
Are they making clones and like are they soul suckers?
Yeah, you're in, dude. But first we have to talk about how April 1st, 1985. I'm baiting the hook for that because it goes nowhere. April 1st, 1985. Ready? 2 days. 2 days, dude. 2 days.
2 days, and then I'm touching
before
foot.
You were born.
Yeah.
Speaking of touching foot, holy shit. Did you do this on purpose? Did you know this?
No, it's honestly, it's odd for me to say touching foot because that's not even like a real phrase.
It didn't really make sense.
No.
But it really seems like you're setting me up to say April 1st, 1985, the release of the first Air Jordans.
What?
100%. First, like, public release of Air Jordans.
That was just a misspeak on my behalf. What I should have said was
touching
like
foot.
When I touched ground or when I like.
Well, you touched your foot to the ground.
Yeah, but now it's
in a fresh pair of Jordans, dude.
That's the first pair of Jordans came out.
First publicly available. I think he had probably worn some in game by then, but the first publicly sold Jordans, April 1st,
We're touching people's foot.
Yeah. One night earlier.
Yeah.
Also a first.
March 31st.
Yeah, something that you wouldn't care that much about, but that I care about.
Okay.
First WrestleMania.
Wow.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Piper and Orndorff, Madison Square Garden.
They were wasting it on me until they didn't realize that around the corner in a few years, Jack's gonna be all about this.
Stretch those out. Well, that means I was probably born around WrestleMania 3, which is what most people really think of when they think of the first WrestleMania.
Okay,
that was the first, that was like,
right. Got it. Also, real quick, in my head, I had to do this little trick to be like, because I just straight up, it was like March 31st. In my head, in the back of my head, I was like, that's a 31 month or 31 day month, right?
Wait, what's this trick?
Have you not seen this?
Also, for the listeners only who don't have the video podcast, Chris is pointing to a knuckle on his hand. I don't know this trick.
You go, okay. So you just take your fist, and the way you know what's the 31 or 30s is you go January, 31,
Pointer,
February, dip.
Oh, we're playing the black keys.
March, 31,
March,
April,
31.
Dip. May, 31.
What?
June, dip. July, 31. I want to say August is 31, or is it just that hand that gets there? Let me double check.
That would make sense, because I'm like, there's no way they just perfectly alternate, but then if you go to the next one, you start on a knuckle again, then that.
Yep. It works.
So Chris is alternating.
No. Wait, June? We did June is the dip, then July is the knuckle there.
Again.
So it'd be, if it works if August is a 31. August is a 31.
So you go to the next hand, you get the first knuckle again, 31.
Yeah, 31. Dip. September, 30.
This is
October,
incredible.
31, November, 30, December, 31, and that's all the knucks on the hands.
That's amazing. This is like the 9 multiplication tables all adding up to 9. When I learned that, it was like, oh.
Wait, okay, so 1 times 9 adds to 10?
1 times 9 is 9. Oh yeah, that one doesn't work. Shut up about that one. Chris, get over it.
Wait, yes.
No, because it's the product.
I see.
The digits of the product sum to 9. So 1 times 9 is 9. That sums to 9.
Yes.
2 times 9 is 18. 1 plus 8 sums to 9.
I see.
3 times 9 is 27 adds, and then 36, 45, 54, 63. They all
mind blown.
You just add 9 each time.
Did you expect you're getting that on my birthday? Those facts.
I knew if I needed to stall more time before talking about this medical mystery, I could always bring up
all waiting on bated
the
breath
9
for
multiplication tables. All right, Chris.
But also, how cool is that knuckle thing? Let's really, I forgot about that in that moment.
That seriously blew my mind.
Yeah. And it's also weird because you're like, oh, that should only add up to like 8, right? Because you're just using your top 4 fingers or in the fist. But then no, with the dips, everything adds up to 12. It's wild.
Playing the black.
We encourage you to play at home.
All right, Chris.
Yeah.
Let's get into this.
Take me in, man. We got zombies in Tahoe that somehow are feeling like empty.
That would be great if they
soulless.
felt like. Yeah, that'd be so cool if they were zombies. Okay, so Incline Village. Do you know Incline Village, Lake Tahoe, Northside,
Incline
Nevada?
Village very well. Yes.
What do you know about Incline Village? Tell me about Incline Village.
Incline Village is in North Shore.
Yep.
It's a bit
Nevada
more
side.
Nevada side. It's a bit more private than South Shore. I mean, you can still get in there, but just that there's a lot more private residents up in Incline. Smaller town than South Shore. Beautiful, but also like it's up in the neck of the woods that I believe is where the Calneva used to be, and that was a hotel that was a hotel that was frequented by kind of like mobsters and stuff, fabled to have been frequented by. And it's also where, if you ever saw Bad Times at the El Royale, I want to say.
I didn't, but
that was like, it was based loosely on that place because it also straddles California, Nevada, Calneva.
Calneva.
How about that?
Well, Chris, at Incline Village in 1985, starting in 1985.
Yes.
160 different cases, residents of Lake Tahoe's North Shore.
Okay.
Were diagnosed. I'm just going to read this part of the LA Times article written by Robert Steinbrook in 1986, following up on this.
Okay.
160 residents of Lake Tahoe's North Shore who have been diagnosed by 2 local physicians since the winter of 1985 as having a chronic flu-like illness in a medical puzzle that has assumed national proportions.
What?
So they all start coming down with like very severe fatigue stuff. Like the feeling that you're a Raggedy Ann with no stuffing.
Where you might feel as though you just sit around and watch TV all day? What is it?
Read or get a video cassette.
Right.
That was in. Should I attribute that quote? Maybe. That was a quote from. I can't find it. Here we go. One victim, a teacher in her early 50s who has been unable to work since September, recalled last week. And teacher is and then she says that quote. Teacher's key. One of the ground zeros of this was Truckee High.
Are we talking water supply? Did something go on in the water supply?
Let's talk some theories.
Okay.
Water supply. So tons of people coming down all at once with major fatigue, inability to get out of bed, crazy cassette tape dreams.
Yeah.
Talking about a water supply possibility.
Right.
Talking about something on the lake, perhaps a blue-green algae overrun.
Interesting.
That starts maybe getting into the water supply, or maybe people swimming in the lake. Do people swim in the lake?
People swim in the lake for sure.
People swim in the lake, and maybe there was on the North Shore a buildup of blue-green algae. There was a theory of it being some sort of contaminant in the school itself, something like lead or something. Basically, I'm going to start summarizing here.
Okay.
Because I've stalled successfully. We've only got 5 minutes of this podcast left. Okay, so then these 2 doctors start diagnosing everybody with their first theory is some sort of chronic case of Epstein-Barr, which is related to like mono, basically. That there was like a huge chronic mono outbreak.
Okay.
In this area. And what we're eventually building to is we're in the early phases of before we had any diagnostic terminology for chronic fatigue syndrome, Chris.
Interesting.
Am I blowing your mind here?
And so wait, are they saying then that those cases being also contained to one singular location? So I guess is it like when one person started speaking up about this chronic fatigue syndrome, there may have been many more in other areas, but it just happened to be that this area people were like, I feel that way too. I feel that way too.
Yes,
it's more widespread.
this is one of the interesting questions. There were these two specific doctors, Peter Cheney and Daniel Peterson, in Incline Village, who started diagnosing people with this. And other people in the medical community were like, this is just, you keep saying this. Like, this isn't an outbreak. This is, you just keep saying that this is what this thing is. But there's no evidence of an outbreak. It was hotly contested. But there is like there were a fair amount of like biological markers. Like they were, all of the people were testing higher for antibodies for Epstein-Barr, which is the underlying like form of herpes that leads to mono and stuff. But it's like chronic fatigue syndrome. This is then what I mostly ended up reading a ton about. Chronic fatigue syndrome is like a thing that is like kind of heavily debated, that there's a good amount of, there's like, at this point, fairly strong evidence that it is like an autoimmune disease of some kind, that basically like we can't totally tell, but that the reason you get a mass outbreak like that is that it's a autoimmune disease that you might have that triggers while your body's trying to fight some other contaminant, so that there was something in the water, or there was a bad form of a bad strain of like a herpes thing going around, or there was something in the walls of whatever. And as your body tries to fight this thing, if you have chronic fatigue syndrome, your immune system is also weakening you in all these other ways, and you get this terrible thing.
That's interesting. That's interesting, because also then that was going to be my follow-up question, is that with chronic fatigue syndrome, as we understand it today, do they largely say it's caused by something or it's inherited, so it's still like seems to be a genuine mystery as to like what the underlying causes are, if it's genetic or if it's a response to some other disease you had a long time ago that is still stored up in your body or something like that. But at the time, people were very dismissive about it. They were calling it, this is also in this article, they were calling it the yuppie flu, because it was a bunch of like people settling in Tahoe and a bunch of like out-of-towners, and they were like coming here and being like, I'm so tired. I wonder if maybe there's an elevation thing that had a factor to it too, if there's some people settling up there, because it's a mile high, and sometimes people get up there and weird shit starts happening if you're just like not used to that.
I like that theory. I think that's interesting.
I'd be curious. I want a cross section of all their details. I want to know I wanted to see the data of like their ages, how long they lived in town, how many people were they all at that same school? Like, what's the?
Well, how long did they live in town, Chris? This leads me to the second part of this rabbit hole that I was just like, wow, this is getting crazy. This is getting really interesting. Am I equipped to tell an interesting medical story? Basically, now after this. So there was this huge outbreak there in the 80s, and these two doctors who were treating it, and or some people would claim sort of overdiagnosing it,
overhyping it.
They started Sierra Internal Medicine, which is a clinic up there in Incline Village.
I want to say I've even heard of that.
I'm saying we're right in your neck of the woods. And they basically were doing like an experimental FDA trial of this drug called Ampligen that was used to treat chronic fatigue syndrome, and was like a full-time course thing. Like you had to be on it. It did not cure it. It treated it. So it's a thing that like you had to be on it. You couldn't take it for a while and then be cured. You had to get on it and stay on it. And it had seemingly very positive results for people with chronic fatigue syndrome, which has another name that I'm not going to try to pronounce. And some people think the name chronic fatigue syndrome sounds dismissive.
Better
timer
than
went
yuppie
off.
flu.
Better than yuppie flu, or the Hollywood Blahs was another name.
The Hollywood Blahs.
The Hollywood Blahs. So basically, timer went off.
You're free now, dude.
Kept us talking about
way more interesting than I think you were worried about.
Okay, well here's what remains an interesting part. There and a lot of this is from a New Yorker article that I can try to find the title of. That was written in like 2012 about this second part of the story, which is. So these doctors who were treating this like outbreak of it start using Ampligen and become sort of this outpost at a time where no one else is diagnosing and treating chronic fatigue syndrome. They're the guys with this experimental treatment. So for the following like 2 decades, Incline Village was essentially like it's a 9,000 person town or something like that. And like half the people there had moved from out of town to seek this treatment that they needed to then stay in Incline Village to receive year round. So Incline Village, this like North Shore Tahoe place became just like a little town that was essentially like an extended treatment center for chronic fatigue. And then like that trial gets shut down at some point in the like mid 2010s. And there's like a major like depression that hits this town because all these people that were like very dependent on this treatment, yeah.
A roller coaster.
Did you know that this weird town near you was like this, had this whole other like secret hidden identity?
I mean, I would drive through there sometimes and be like, people seem a little bummed. I don't know. Not at all. No, I had no idea about that. Also, a testament to what seems to be a treatment that was working. If people were like straight up like moving there to stay there, and then
I think it was what I was reading was like it sounded like pretty mixed results. But part of that could be, you know, the argument was being made in this article that since we don't actually know really the origins of chronic fatigue, there might be multiple kind of things that are being diagnosed as it. So you might send somebody there with that thing, and half of the people that have the same underlying cause of this thing are going to respond really well to this treatment, and the other ones aren't, and whatever.
Right.
But it seems like that thing hasn't totally stuck. But that same medication was kind of had a moment in the sun as a potential long hauler COVID treatment because it's basically a thing to like help fight chronic fatigue and all these symptoms that, you know, people are now experiencing in a major way.
Wow.
So it's one to keep an eye on.
Village.
Incline Village.
Hot.
That was what was going on. That was what was going on in your soon-to-be neck of the woods.
Wow. Well crafted,
and that's the end of that
well
podcast.
Researched.
Thank you. I was worried about talking about it because I was like, I don't know if I actually know enough of this medical stuff to have a smart, nuanced conversation about people thinking that a disease was a hoax, knowing that it's a thing that some people feels, you know.
I think you handled it tactfully.
Thank you. I'm gearing up for making this be a full like Radio Lab style podcast.
Which we'll probably have to do at a point.
That's the breaking birthday news. Birth date line, Chris. There's the breakdown of all the fun stuff and the interesting stuff that was happening on the day you were born. And also, did I mention that March 29th was the release of Police Academy 2, their first assignment. The end of podcast.
Well done. We were talking about podcast sign-offs and, you know, the challenges of doing it succinct and tight. We have to do that 3 times in these. We got to do the macro podcast. We got to sign off of our individual ones. I thought that was a very nice sign off of of yours. And now in the sign off of our main one,
we're going to ask ourselves about each of these podcasts. Was it fun? Was it repeatable? Does it add value to the world? That's how we'll judge if we think it's a good enough podcast to consider making a second episode or perhaps even a whole season of. So we'll begin
Beef and Bouquet.
With Beef and Bouquet.
Was it fun?
You know, I think there was a lot of fun in there. I had a lot of fun in there.
I don't think it was like, I don't know if it was like defined as fun because you're kind of like, you're working through some stuff that wasn't fun.
Yeah.
You know, you're also maybe going through your head of like, I don't know if we were talking about like, hey, you were feeling uncomfortable sharing a whole story about your daughter crying for a majority of it. I don't know if that was fun for you.
It wasn't fun. I didn't have fun.
Right. That's fine.
I didn't have fun, but I had fun talking to you.
Yeah.
But was the Beef and Bouquet premise itself fun? It was open. It was like more than because you prefaced as like staring into the void, whatever. And then what I would say the opposite for me was that Beef and Bouquet was very like easy to like, oh yeah, there's a ton of we can talk about. It was, it got us going in a good way.
Sure.
Was it inherently fun? No, it was about how my daughter cried and your brother got robbed.
But was it repeatable?
Was it repeatable? Yeah, I bet something good and something bad happens pretty much every week.
Does it add value to the world, Jack?
I would say the concept of beefs and bouquets, the idea of taking a little moment to go, what am I grateful for? What am I stressed by? Reflecting on both of those things as though you were evaluating potential sorority sisters that you're welcoming into your sisterhood.
Right.
I think that is valuable. The idea of beefs and bouquets. Listening to ours, no. No, I don't think so.
It added value to my world, but that's the twist.
That's what I'm saying.
Is that all these podcasts kind of add value to my world because it's essentially it's a good excuse for me to hang out with my buddy.
I think everyone should have their own Beef and Bouquet podcast with a friend.
Yes, it would do a lot. Overall, good podcast. Maybe not a great podcast, but more of a good excuse to air out some grievances and connect with another person.
It was a good chat.
It's a good hang.
And also it was it was good to get vulnerable about some stuff on this podcast.
Sometimes you got to do that.
People come here for us to talk for weeks on end about the Phantom, but they don't. But they stay.
They stay for the vulnerability.
Birth date line.
I had fun.
I had fun
with that. I think I probably had more fun because I'm on the receiving end of the research. I didn't have to do any work for that.
Next time we did it, you would be hosting with me. You'd have to share in the research.
Yes. I'd say being the subject is fun.
Yeah.
Because I just got treats, you know what I mean?
But it's fun too. I wanted more treats. I wanted to go here's a dog that got rescued in Hilarut. That's what I really wanted. I wanted to find a local interest story of new bakery opens. That's what I want this podcast to be.
Right.
And instead, we debated the existence of chronic fatigue syndrome. And my doesn't this sound fun hook was about a woman describing herself as a doll with no stuffing. It was dark. That was sad. And I was like, that's what really hooked me, man.
But that, in many ways, I just have to accept as my reality because this is what defined me as a human entering into this world.
That's I don't think we can judge the premise of my great podcast idea based on how shitty your birthday was.
Yeah. The fact that I, brought all that stuff into existence from just at least in the orbit of the date of my birth, that's on me.
We'll find some fun stuff like the new Air Jordans and a mysterious chronic illness that's plaguing a small town. Yeah, Chris is here.
Well, I had fun.
I had fun too.
I thought that I think it's ultimately repeatable. It turns into an interview show with a new guest each time.
And we get to do some research and bring on a friend and be like, here's the fun stuff. And we'll make it fun next time.
We could do at least 365. We know that.
Yeah.
We could do that many.
And the more you focus on that, that's why I wanted to focus on the small town stories. The more you focus, because a lot of the stuff, just telling you who was the prime minister of Denmark, that wasn't necessarily.
Sure. But that's the fun window dressing on the journey of this podcast. And also,
we'll hear some local stories. And we'll also hear about Paul Schlüter.
And when you do the small town story stuff, then you can also double up on dates. So we can actually triple.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's good.
As long as we pick people who live in different parts of the world or different parts of the country.
Yeah.
We would. How repeatable is it? Is also a bit based on how much it's a lot of it was a lot of reading.
I believe that. Also, it's how many friends do we have? How many people would want to spend time with us?
That's a good question.
I wonder.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, it's just kind of do we really want to do more episodes? I guess that would require us confirming that there are more people in our lives.
Yeah, somehow it's weird. We keep doing these ones that would be good with a guest, and then it just keeps being the other person. Does nobody? Sorry, I'm just noticing. Does nobody else want to talk to us? Hold on.
They're out there.
Does it bring value to the world? Of course, because it was us and everybody.
Everyone values us. That was my bouquet. That's my bouquet. Everyone in the world values me.
My bouquet is I could jump over. I can whatever the world record for high jump. I'm 3 inches off of that. I can jump so high.
Verified. I can believe. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So of those two, would you say that one wins, quote unquote?
I I contend that I may not have given us the best version of this birthday idea, which still needs a better title. But I think there's a fun interview format, similar to how I left last week, or two weeks ago podcast 2 weeks ago. Thinking about that cryptid one is like, yeah, you interview somebody about what their hometown is like and what like cool little myths are like. That's cool. And I think like this is one where like you tell somebody some fun facts about their world that they maybe didn't know, while they get to talk about like, where were you born and who was there and what was it like, and like that type of. I think that is a fun little prism to view somebody through in a silly way.
I agree. I think that was the winner. Personally, people can vote at home what you liked, what you preferred of the two. But I do feel like, it was an earnest effort with Beef and Bouquet to be like, what is it to just like kind of talk? But maybe we need to go further with that kind of podcast. It is straight up just like,
we're just going to talk.
There just talk. Let's just see what
maybe
happens
need to try
for 30
it,
minutes.
just press record and go.
And just go. But maybe that's not fun for anybody. Maybe none of this is fun, but maybe all of it's fun.
Whoa!
Tune in next week and find out what is actually fun on Chris and Jack's Podcast Pilots, the podcast.
The podcast. And here's our classic sign-off. You see the brick, eat it. Hey, get out of LA.